Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of What's Happening Now. As always, remember to like, follow, and comment on this Facebook Live, this live broadcast, as there could be some information not only useful to yourself, but maybe to a family or a friend or a relative. What's got going on with CNOW Solutions right now? Brittany, we've working 3 classes right now. I should say 2.5 classes. How's that going?
I can actually the same since now Mondays have switched over from me to you. How is it going for you?
Yeah. So, folks, if those who've been following who don't know, one of the things that we have introduced into CNOW Solutions, we are now offering what we call our Boost class. And that is for businesses who are ready to scale their current business to the next level. And what we have done was the current launching class that Miss Brittany has been teaching for the last 9 months, we are now putting those young ladies and gentlemen into our Boost program, which has been a shocker for them. And they are actually eating it up and ready to learn more and take their business to the next level.
They absolutely are. The phone calls I got Monday night, I said, look, Mr. Fry's your instructor now. What are you telling me? But I definitely did ask the questions, a better understanding, and excited to come back Monday to see what it is that you're going to say to them. And let me make sure I get the rest of our people in here because they're missing out on something good.
Right.
And then Tuesday rolls around, and the Thursday class is absolutely nerve-wracking in a good sense because they are blowing my phones up. Miss Brittany, I need to schedule my makeup. I want to go back through it, asking so many questions, just understanding that I'm ready to get this information to launch this business.
Right. Outstanding. Hey, I also want to give a big thanks and shout out to Drake Technical College here in Huntsville, Alabama. They invited me down to talk to them a little bit about entrepreneurship to their students down there. It was a wonderful event. I enjoyed the time talking to those students. There was a lot of good questions to be had there like this. So again, I appreciate everything that Drake has been doing and what they are doing with those students. So tonight's broadcast is being brought to you by Consofta. Okay, Consofta is basically, this is the all-in-one marketing platform designed to empower coaches, consultants, and small businesses. With Consofta, you can streamline your entire business from client management to small business marketing like this. So, if you have never used a business software like Consofta, I can tell you we've used it here at CNOW Solution. We used it for our Braid-a-thon, and it worked out excellent for us, and we're going to continue to use it. And there's so many more things that you can do with it. If you're a small business, please, by all means, use Consofta. So tonight, we have a very special guest, a good friend of mine. We worked a lot of events in the community. He's been doing great things with this organization. We have Mr. Dana Gillis, the CEO of Villiage of Promise. Sir, welcome. How is everything?
Everything is great. So happy to be here with you all tonight.
Outstanding. So tell us and tell the viewers a little bit about what is Villiage of Promise.
All right, Villiage of Promise is a family advancement center, and we work over in the Northwoods community, and our mission is to move families out of generational poverty. And what we do is we do it by focusing on children and preschool education, but we also work with the families. Mm-hmm. So we try to make sure that we're moving entire families along. Mm-hmm. And we do it by basically forming a contract with the families. And it's the family advancement plan that basically asks families, what are the dreams for your family? And once we figure that out, our thing is Village of Promise serves as the ecosystem to bring resources together to make that happen.
Man, I tell you what, I know I've been down in that area and I know you're around that area in that Northwoods area, and I've been inside the building and I've seen some of the children and the parents coming in and out, and I've seen a lot of events stuff that y'all having. So y'all guys are just taking things more or less to the next level because it's not just a place where you can drop off your child and be gone. Mm-hmm. Like this, it's more than that. Like this, can you break a little bit of that down for us?
Yeah. For instance, for every child that we've got in our preschool, mm-hmm. So we've got a license to have 64 children. But for every child that's in that preschool, their parents have to be involved in our adult-focused programs. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So it's a matter of the village promises to connect with children from cradle to career. Mm-hmm. So our job is to get them ready to go into the K through 12 system. And then we partner with Huntsville City Schools as our children advance through the 12th grade. Our ultimate goal is by the time they hit the 12th grade, they're ready to go to college or ready to go into the workforce.
Okay.
That's our real focus. But for the parents, we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that the children are successful on that journey.
Right.
So we've got parents that have never gotten their high school diploma, and we partner with Drake State, who helps with teaching GED courses.
Okay.
So we get parents ready to, get their equivalent degree. We've got a lot of Latino families because of a growing Latino population. And what we're doing there is we're offering English as a second language, which is vital if you're going to be successful in this economy. We also do adult literacy classes for the adults. We had a young lady that up until recently couldn't even recite the alphabet, but based on adult literacy classes, she is not only doing that, but in 1 year, she's actually reading for the first time in her life.
Wow.
And this year, we're going to add an adult computer literacy course, because if you can't, do things like basically type, search the internet,
Right.
look for jobs, being able to fill out job forms online, you're really stuck without being able to have those basic skills.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of surprised at the number of people that don't in a city like Huntsville, which is a technological hub, probably second only to Silicon Valley out in California.
Man, one of the things I do like about Village of Promise and having people that I know who's been trying to become a member or get their kids in that, this isn't just some fly-by-night daycare and things like this. There's actually people waiting to become part of Village of Promise. It's not like it's open to anyone. Oh, just come on. We can come on down tomorrow. We can get you in. No, it's like, dude, you're like, it's almost like getting into an Ivy League school.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's almost, that's what I can compare it to. It's not like, hey, you just can't get into Yale. There's a lot of steps that have to take place like this. And y'all built that reputation like that to whereas parents want their children in Village of Promise. I've actually heard that. Mm-hmm. I've actually heard parents say, no, I want my child going to Village of Promise. What do you attest that to?
I think it's our holistic approach. It's not just about teaching the very basics from an educational standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
It's making sure that we help build strong families so that families can live their version of the American dream.
Right.
And it's not what I think it ought to look like or what Charles thinks it should look like. It is, we're going to ask Brittany, what do you want for your family? And we contract that out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we work with you and stay by your side. Because I think as people try to transition their lives and transform it into what they want, it can be scary at times because the way our systems are built, you get a little bit ahead. And if you're being supported by certain governmental functions, they start to take those away when you're most vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And you need somebody that's going to walk that journey with you.
Absolutely.
So that you're not alone.
Right.
That's what our real focus is.
And to back up what Mr. Dana's saying, being that I am the two youngest children, Autumn and Justin. Autumn graduated from Village of Promise 2 years ago, and Justin's a current student. And I can tell you from 2021, when Autumn started going to Village of Promise, 2022, I literally have had the most success when it comes to the childhood education. In the pre-K sense, Kennedy didn't go to pre-K, Jacayla was okay. But having what we call, like how when we bring our entrepreneurs in, we tell them, once you come through our doors, your family.
Mm-hmm.
Village of Promise is the village that everybody needs, but don't realize that they lack until they actually get there.
Right.
Knowing with the family that we have, I have a village within the family, but having the extra outside support. Like I was telling Mr. Gillis, when we were Village of Promise parents with Autumn, he had his therapist. She was a therapist. She was a counselor. She was a friend. The parent hours, being able to get me engaged with what Autumn is doing or what Justin is doing, to have those moments to be able to come in and actually now walk him to the classroom. And he's excited to get there. He's excited to change his face from home to school. He's excited to put his book bag up. He loves to write his name out. He loves everything about it. Justin, what did you do to school today? I play, but we know it's a play-based learning. And even in the play-based learning, he can tell me everything he did while he played.
Outstanding. And, I got some questions on that, and I know I got some more questions for you on that, but we got a few questions here from some of the audience. It says, One question is, how do you enroll in the adult programs? Oh, good question.
Basically, for the adult programs, you come into our Family Advancement Center. And in the Family Advancement Center, we've got 2 social workers that are full-time, and they actually run the caseloads for our families. So the best way to do that is, and I think we'll have our number up later on, but you can contact us at 256-536-8052. And at that number, that's where you'll be able to contact Family Advancement and actually become part of our programs.
Okay.
So that's the intake point. Then once you come into that, as Brittany says, your family at that point.
All right, we got another question up here. And I think this question is probably revolving around what you talked about. We're teaching them English as a second language. It says you should add Spanish classes. This country is becoming bilingual and folk are pretty much going to have to speak Spanish to become competitive. What do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely right. You look at countries, I've spent a lot of time in Europe. Just about everybody in Europe is bilingual, but I'm one of the few people in this country. I barely speak English as it is, but I married somebody. My wife is a lover of language, and she speaks both Mandarin Chinese.
Oh, wow.
And German.
Wow.
She did that through government service, but I've never done that. But in the world that we live in now, we're going to be more globally connected. You're going to have to learn a second language to be competitive.
I tell you what, Mandarin, that is no easy task.
She is great in Chinese restaurants, I can tell you that.
All right. So another question here. It says, what type of fees for the programs, and is there a waiting list?
All right. So I'll take the second part of that question first. There is a waiting list for our school-based programs for the kids. But as far as the adult programs, there are no costs associated with those. The cost for the preschool programs is basically income-based. And for daycare, let's say, for instance, we've got folks that are paying approximately $10 per week, $40 a month.
Oh, wow.
I've gone out to some of the commercial companies that are now getting into preschool care. A 3-year-old in one of these organizations costs $249 a week. So our thing is to help families, put them in a position where they can go to job interviews, where they can afford to take an entry-level job as they make their way up the corporate ladder, so to speak, but knowing that their children are getting quality daycare.
That's awesome. I tell you what, being here in the Huntsville area and knowing about Village of Promise, I did not know that there was not an associated cost for the adult programs. I just assumed there was, or I just assumed that your child had to be connected to Village of Promise to become part of the adult program. That's interesting. That's interesting. I like that.
So I think, one of the challenges we have is just space. We're over at the old Calvary Hill School in one of the wings there. And we're only limited by the amount of space that we've got. And we're hoping to do something about that in the future. But the way that we fund our programs, we go out to private foundations, private individuals that give us funding. A lot of companies in the area are very generous. We've gotten several grants from places like Mazda, Toyota. They helped us with a grant with regard to the Freedom School, our summer reading program. We've gotten a grant from Comcast to do digital literacy and other learning programs related to technology. So the individual companies in this area are very generous because they see the value in what it is we're doing at the Village of Promise. And they look at it as an investment in their future. Right. And that's the one thing that I talk to company CEOs about all the time is your workforce looks great now. It may look great 3 or 4 years down the road, but if you want to future-proof your company's existence, I've literally got your workforce in my classrooms right now, and 18 years from now, some of those folks are going to want to go right into the workforce. We're preparing them to do that.
Exactly. I love that mindset. One of the viewers asked, they said, is there a waiting program or to get in as a child now? And you said there was. How long have y'all guys been around to the fact whereas people are now have to sign up on this waiting list to get in, that made people say, that's who I want?
Well, Village of Promise has been around since 2011.
Okay.
And we are based on, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Harlem Children's Zone.
No, I haven't.
All right, the Harlem Children's Zone was founded over 40 years ago. And basically, their goal was to transform Harlem one block at a time. I saw some photographs when I went back there in January where they were showing photos of Harlem back in the 70s. And you could look at one of their photographs and compare it to Dresden, Germany in World War II after the bombing. But if you flip the script to where we are today, I felt safer in Harlem than I did in Times Square.
Wow.
And it's that sense of community and family that they built. And when they say transforming it one block at a time, they've transformed about 100 blocks. And you can go to places like the refurbished Apollo Theater. There's actually now a Marriott hotel that just opened within the past year in Harlem. You would not have imagined that just
not
5
one
to
time.
10 years ago. So they have really done a marvelous job at that. And what we try to do is take their model. We want to do the same thing by planting a flag in the Northwoods community. And our job is to try to touch as many lives in Northwoods and the Love housing community that surrounds it as we possibly can. And we're going to do that for as long as it takes to get people to where they want to go.
Right, right. Hey, I want to capitalize on that. We got a few more questions that coming in from some of the viewers. It says, I guess they're talking from the adult program. It says, do you help with job placement?
One of the things that we do is we partner with like the Huntsville Housing Authority. They are into job development, professional development, trying to get people ready for work. So what we do is work in partnership. Once we do the basics of preparing our families, getting the GED, being able to speak English, computer skills, then we're utilizing those other job building programs throughout the city to try to build alliances to have people move from us into the workforce.
Right. Man, I tell you what, I want to talk on that, but I see a huge question up here from this viewer. Let's get this question out, and I'll talk about mine. It says, do you offer basic life skill classes, i.e., for individuals who've experienced generational poverty and are on the cusp of transitioning, may not know about the importance of building good credit, debt management, or home ownership?
We absolutely do. One of our programs is called Family Connections, and that's where we have the parents of children that are in our preschool. They come in to work a program once a week for 12 weeks. And in this program, part of it is you sit down with your children, you have a meal around a table. We try to model what it's like for a family to just sit at a meal, asking kids how your day was, reading to kids for about an hour. We separate the kids out, and then we bring in speakers that present classes on things like financial literacy. So we'll bring people from the banking community to talk about what is a credit score? How do you raise your credit score? How do you, we want to make sure that all the folks in our classes, by the time they leave, they've established a relationship with a banking institution, be it a credit union or one of the local banks. They're talking about how do you go about getting a mortgage? All those things that you're going to need to actually transition out of generational poverty as you want to move your family into home ownership and building wealth. We do classes on basics like just CPR. How many times do you have family medical emergencies? And you could have saved someone's life just for the sake of knowing basic CPR. We also talk about health and personal management. We do health and wellness classes. Like I think our first class that starts in 2 weeks in family advancement, they're going to have dinner with their kids, talk a little bit about financial management, but the class is going to end with a Zumba session. Just to talk about the need to get up and move and be active. And on top of all that, we have people that also come in and talk about those life skills that you're going to need. Home repair. You know, what do you do if you have a problem with plumbing in your house? In the housing authority, you can pick up the phone and call somebody. But if you're a homeowner, that's on you. So teaching those skills. And we also teach skills about healthy eating. You know, I'm sitting here now as a rather large gentleman, and I probably need to do a little more vegetables in my life. But we have healthy eating classes because we're trying to show what we can do from a holistic standpoint to improve the life of the entire family.
Right. Hey, folks, those who are viewing, please take time to share this live with some friends or family that you know who can need this information that Mr. Gillis is putting out about Village of Promise. You know, there's a few things that we got. In fact, we got a few slides we want to go through, and if just you could talk us through these a little bit.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brittany. You know, so we got some contact information for Village of Promise for those who want to know more about it or want to support it, right? And what's this next slide here? So this is your mission statement, and in that mission statement, there's many photos that y'all had going on here, and this just goes to show the dynamics of what all you guys are doing. It's more than just that school education that y'all are doing. Y'all are showing a versatile of events that are taking place, and one of the main ones that y'all guys do is that the one table. You know, like this.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us a little bit about that? Come on back, Brittany.
So just to talk a little bit about mission. Our mission is to help transition families, excuse me, out of generational poverty. So we're doing that with that multi-generational approach, focused on the kids, because we want to get them on that pipeline of cradle to career,
Right.
as opposed to cradle to prison.
Cradle to prison.
Which is kind of what some people think when you think of individuals that, oh, you're in generational poverty. We know what your life is going to be. We want to change that trajectory. And then working with the parents to make sure that that happens. So we use that as our mission. That's the driver for the Village of Promise. And those photographs that you saw around that slide, that is showing how we bring those generations together in a holistic approach. We talked to some folks that were at City Hall, and one of the things that they said in talking about funding the Village of Promise, they liked the fact that we were taking a holistic approach to the issue of generational poverty, as opposed to addressing symptoms of generational poverty. And that's not to say that some of the other nonprofits out there aren't doing great work, but we are trying to find partners to do that. You know, we partner with Heals Incorporated to provide medical care for our students. One of the things that we found out, we were running a school, but we didn't have a school nurse.
Right.
So kid comes up, got these little dots all over their face. Hey, take a picture. Anybody know what this rash is? And, you know, our thing is now we've got somebody that can help us with that.
Right.
We partner with groups that come in and do testing of our kids so we can find out early if a kid has a learning disability. We can already work with Huntsville City Schools to start the process of developmental interventions so that they can start the process now. And when the kid arrives in kindergarten, they've already got that relationship and the resources that they need. The other thing that we do with the adults is just making sure that everything that they need comes into one place. We bring those resources to the families as opposed to the families having to go out and search it all themselves.
Go search for it.
One Table Huntsville, that is a passion project of ours and for me as well. And for me, One Table Huntsville, it's a Thanksgiving style meal that we serve to the community. It's for free, and it happens on the Monday before Thanksgiving. So mark your calendars for November the 25th, 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. over at Big Spring Park. What's important is we try to get all segments of the community to sit together. We don't have an agenda. It's just a chance for people to sit and meet somebody that you don't know and have a conversation.
Right.
And that is the joy of it. The first year that I was on board, I think we had about 900 to 1,000 people there. Last year, it doubled. We had over 2,000 people that came.
Wow.
Target was a title sponsor for us, and they brought 500 boxes of food for the under-resourced.
Wow.
And it was just phenomenal. And the thing is, everybody stayed around. It wasn't like people would just dive in, eat a meal, and walk off. They stuck around to have the conversations.
Right.
And I think that's important because our city was named the #1 city to live in 22 to 23. Now, I work over in Northwoods, and I dare say if I knocked on any door out there, I'm going to get a different response.
Right.
They're not going to say, oh, this isn't the best place to live. And for me, the focus is to get people in other stations of life throughout our community to see that if we want to maintain that status, we can't leave any group behind.
Right.
And I think Huntsville is making great strides in that regard. I love what they're doing with the Mill Creek project that the Housing Authority just got $50 million to go in and redo that area. And at some point, that'll come over to Northwoods. lens.
Mhm.
But I'm one of those guys, let's do it quicker, faster, and get more people involved. But I think One Table Huntsville's purpose is to make sure that, as I like to call it, the suits downtown don't forget about everybody else that might not live in that same situation, that might not see the city and its progress through the same lens.
Outstanding. We got a couple more questions here. It says here, do you have mandatory IEP meetings with parents and children, child for behavior problems, and problems may occur while the child is enrolled in the program that they need addressing?
So that's one of the things that we do with our training. We have somebody that comes in and can actually do a review and an assessment for children that may have learning disabilities. We get them on an IEP, and we have resources from Huntsville City Schools that will come in and work with children based on those things, or recommend where we can go to get additional resources.
Okay.
So we're trying to bridge the gap and get an early start so that when the child actually gets into the public school system, they're already set up to be successful.
Okay. They got another question here. It says, where do you get your curriculum used to teach the children in the program?
Great question. We've actually got two separate curriculums that we deal with because we have kids that are part of daycare. So those are kids, we've got them as young as 6 weeks of age up through 3 years old. Then we get the kids that are, 4.5 into 5 years old that are in pre-K education.
Okay.
The pre-K education is set forth by the state. So that curriculum is provided, as well as the milestones that have to be met, and we track those metrics, and that gets reported back to the state. But the kids that are younger, we're using protocols that are best practice for daycare and early childhood learning. And we had a meeting the other day where we're exploring a new type of curriculum that's called the Reggio method. It comes out of Italy, and basically it is where the child leads their own learning. And what I mean by that is it's focused on giving the child a chance to explore everything under the sun. So you set up an exploratory room that has art, it has math, history, all these different things, and kids are exposed to it. When you find what the kids are really catching on to, then the teacher's responsibility is to develop the curriculum around those things so the child can develop that. Like as a little kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. So that kid that might be interested in math and science, we're going to develop things that are science related that will help that child as they go through school. So we're trying to give them an early footing.
I was just going to ask you, how do you direct the traffic? And I know a lot of viewers out there, and they have a lot of kids that are just happen to be above average. Those younger kids that are speaking like you and I, that are using big words and are talking about things like, how do you even know that? You're only 4 years old. How did you understand that's what that means? And is that what you just talking about? Is that one of the ways that you are driving that traffic to help those who are speaking different than the other ones who aren't speaking yet, who understands these conversations that you and I are having, and they're saying, "Oh, I understand that, Mr. Gillis." You have to first take the bottom of the square root of that, and you apply it to that. And you and I are both looking at them like, "What?" How do you handle that?
I'll give you an example. Last year, I think it was during Black History Month, I walked down a hallway, and we've got a classroom full of 3.5 to 4-year-olds. And what they do with this Reggio method, you get the kids interested in something, and then they might do drawings, artwork. They might, try to write a little story about it. And I'm walking down the hallway, and I see these drawings about Duke Ellington. And I'm going, what do these kids know about Duke Ellington? And I walk into the room, and I just started having conversations with them. And the teacher had introduced the concept of jazz. Then they talked about some of the jazz masters. Kids got interested in Duke Ellington and his music. So then they wanted to learn more about it. Teacher brings in a turntable, and the kids are just all in the Duke Ellington's music.
Wow.
So now you got this cadre of little kids that might have been listening to hip hop on the way to school with their parents, but during the day they got exposed to Duke Ellington. Now they want to get in the car. Hey, Mom, I want to listen to Duke Ellington. The parents are looking at them like, what? But it's the kids are sponges, and I don't think we give them enough credit at that age. And I always tell the staff, when you get a kid that's a 3-year-old, that is a perfectly formed little person.
Yes.
And the thing is, when you treat them from that perspective, which is, I'm just going to expose you to things to see what your interest level is, you'll be surprised at the level to which they can understand.
Right. I agree with you 100% on that. I was always one of those ones who did not like talking to kids like Google Gaga like this. No. I would talk to them and straight like, hey, you know that's wrong, right? You know we can't do that like this. Or, you know, I would speak to them that way so they would pick that up because they take in everything that they hear and see nowadays. And so if you speak to them on that level, then they'll understand how to respond back to you in that level, as opposed to just looking at you crazy like, what's he talking about? You know?
Absolutely.
So I think that is important. You know, you mentioned so many collaborative efforts, you know, and it's so funny when I hear you talk about all these collaborations and partners you're working with. It's almost like hearing us echo through CNI Solutions. Like, man, these are some of the same collaborative partners that we're using, that we use to help develop the community and the people that come through our courses. And I think that is awesome, that to know that it's not just one of us out here fighting this fight by ourselves. There is a group of us who's all trying to fight this fight and trying to build this program, build this community, build those to give them something that, you know, that otherwise they would not have the opportunity to get anywhere else. So I think that is awesome, everything that Village of Promise is doing. And I tell you what, if there's anything that we can do from CNI Solutions standpoint to support and come in, talk, whatever, let me know, because I want to be part of this growth and ensuring that our future is going to be okay for our kids like this. And part of that is we got to start giving them this education and this training that we're doing now, so they have that, you know. So I got a question for you from Village of Promise, what you're doing. And I know we're almost time. I know time is gone, guys, but, you know, I want to get this one in. Give me your perspective of what has taken place from the time that Dana was growing up to kids now. What's different? What has changed? I always say to myself, my kids who are now 36 and 35,
35 and 34,
or 34, you know,
or 34,
or 34, can't do what I can do, even right now, today, as a grown man, as a grown man, they still can't do what I can do. Why do you think that is when it comes to our children, how so much has changed? Whereas when we were growing up, you know, I used to hear those stories. I used to go to school and I had to walk 10 miles to school uphill both ways in the snow. You know, you had those stories, and that's what carried us through. What has changed? Why our kids are not so resilient, so gung-ho and so tough anymore?
I think part of it is the amount of exposure to so many outside influences at early ages in a child's life.
Okay.
You know, we didn't have to deal with the internet or picking up, you know, one of these things
right.
at an early age. There are 3-year-olds that can pick up this and work it probably.
Lord, do I know it.
And then you get kids that are just bombarded by things on social media and all sorts of things that are on the internet that you and I knew nothing about.
Right.
I look at, you know, what I was thinking of even as a young teenage boy. All I wanted to do was play basketball, look at race cars, and I love sports. Well, kids nowadays, they have to guard themselves against things like, we just had a conversation with a group of folks earlier today about things like sextortion online, where, you know, the thing that's bothersome is young boys that might do things relative to young girls or vice versa and put it out online. They don't realize you've just committed a felony.
Right.
We didn't have those things.
We didn't have that.
Up. We didn't have those pressures growing up. And I think the other thing is when we were in school, everybody learned the same thing. I don't care where you were.
Right.
It's you're going to learn, as my grandmother would say, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Right.
And everybody went through the same phases.
Right.
But now there are so many different ways to learn things. You've got resistance by parents that I think a lot of parents don't want kids to fail to their detriment.
Right.
You know, parents hover and they want success for the kids and they put pressure on kids. Whereas with us, it was, you know, I'm bored. Then my parents were like, well, go outdoors and play. Find something to do. And as long as you were back before the street lights
came on, that's
you
right.
were good.
You were good.
But telling a child now, go out and play, do what?
What?
Right.
What is that? What,
I would sit in my room and
what do you do out there? What do you do out there? What do you mean? What do you do out there? It's outdoors. Play. Find something.
And I think parents, they have good intentions, but you have got to let kids fail in order for them to succeed. Because they got to know what it feels like to get knocked down and to get back up.
Yes.
And I think it's that constant shielding
of
kids. And then it's the lack of the ability to have a conversation and look somebody in the eye. I noticed, you know, as I was moving along in my career in law enforcement, when I was interviewing people that wanted to be part of what we were doing, the younger generation, they didn't really know how to carry on conversation because they didn't do that.
Right.
Everything is done on one of these.
Right.
And they've lost that ability to relate to people as individuals. I think that's the big difference.
I agree with you there. I agree with you there because there's so much that got lost in transition. There's so much lost in using telephones and our generation, those kids nowadays, they don't understand how to survive. It's almost like they don't know how to survive. You know, I think back when I want to say we had a shutdown here in Huntsville where power went out and when the phones went down.
Oh yeah.
I know people were going crazy.
Yeah,
it's not working. It's not working.
Something happened where I think they said the T-Mobile plant was hit with something and somebody tried to bomb it and something like that. And we were all out of phone service for a minute. The older girls, that 14, 13-year-old, lost their minds.
My phone goes down and I'm the happiest man on the planet. Nobody can get to me.
Just recently when they had the glitch with Facebook and Twitter and everything, and all social medias went out and everybody was going crazy. When you got back up online, the amount of messages, the amount of posts that you see, what happened, what's going on, like everybody's so technically, like depending on technology, that one post, it really made me chuckle. The young lady was on there like, hey, anybody ever know you can take and turn the cell phone, plug a cord in it and like make it a phone for you can use at the house? And somebody's like, baby, you don't know what a house phone is? Like we had house phones and y'all so dependent on cell phones that you think you invented a house phone, and it's something that we used to fight for our wireless phone. Oh, well, we got the phone in the house with no wire.
Right.
We was fighting because my mom,
we had the long cord
that long 20-foot cord that you was using.
We did have that phone at first, but when the cordless phones came out, my mom was so petty she bought one.
Oh,
she was like, when somebody called my line, we was on the phone, was like, oh, somebody beeping, I gotta go. But we was excited to have something different and then get the cell phone now, my kids, and he can tell you, I try to push off of the phones as often. We try to go out more and do more things as a family. They hate when we say, hey, give us the phones, we're going in to go eat. And they're,
and that's
like,
it's
a 45-minute meal.
Right.
Like you can't let the phone go for 45 minutes. So we all sit at the table and everybody's like this. And then somebody's like, yeah, put the phones down. And like, okay, give me a second. I'm in the middle of a game. Give me the phone. And then we're upset. But we like to give them something different.
Oh, yeah.
I sat down at the table with my mom and my siblings. We sat down at the table. We didn't have a choice.
Exactly.
So when we not give them a choice, they're now getting to a point where they know, okay, 7:30, we need to be sitting at the table because they're going to come and take the phones anyway. So we might as well go ahead and make it happen.
I think we've lost that sense of communal experiences. And it's even like with television, we all had shared experiences. You probably remember when Roots was on.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in the country watched Roots.
Yep.
The Apollo 11 moon landing.
Right.
Everybody around the world had that same experience. If they were going to land and walk on the moon today, I guarantee you 50% of the world would yawn because they wouldn't have even a knowledge that it took place.
Exactly.
And I think that's where you got that the difference in our generation possibly compared with today's generation.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Hey, Dana, this has been awesome. Love having you here.
I thoroughly enjoyed
I
it.
love what you are doing with the Village of Promise and the community. Is there anything you want to share with the viewers before we close, sir?
I think from the standpoint of the Village of Promise, we are an asset for the community. And we want you to come in, check us out, and let us see how we can help you and your families get to the places that you want to go in life. And it's all about exposure, and it is about, for us, being not only just an organization, but we feel very happy and fortunate to be part of the community. So when we use the term village and that African proverb, it takes a village to raise a family, that's basically what we are. We're the village for helping raise healthy and strong families here in Huntsville.
Outstanding, outstanding. Hey, I appreciate you coming here today, sir.
It's my pleasure.
Hey, those who have been watching and viewing, hey, we appreciate you taking time, giving us some questions, and sharing this video. Always remember, your yesterday is not your today, and your today is not your tomorrow. Good night.